Hello and welcome to this session, which I have called University, What Next? My name is Kate Robbins and I am a careers consultant at Nottingham Trent University. Here's what we're going to cover in this webinar. The idea is to offer you advice about the different options that are available to you after university and to help you identify your next steps. The sections we're going to cover are bursting misconceptions, what your options are, what graduates do, and how to stay employable. So first off, bursting misconceptions. You might have some misconceptions about finding graduate work. So I've put a few of them here that came out of the study, What Do Graduates Want by the Bright Network. Some of these I'm sure you will feel resonate with yourself, or you may have found other people have come across some of these or said these to you. That a big salary is more important than enjoying your job. Well, you're actually going to stay in your job for a long time, hopefully, and if you enjoy it, that's going to be much easier to do so. Your degree dictates your career. Well, I'll bust that for you in a minute. That employers will just come to you and offer you a job. Unfortunately, there are far too many graduates out there, and you will need to go and not only search for roles, but tailor your applications to the roles that you apply for. Another misconception is that you can only apply for graduate schemes with a 2-1 or a first, and that only final years or brand new graduates can apply for these graduate schemes. Again, I'll bust that for you too. The next one is that you'll need to work unpaid for an employer for a period of time before they actually pay you. Hopefully that won't be the case. There are one or two very specific and small areas where you might need to carry out some volunteering work to get experience first, but ideally you're going to get paid because of the work that you do and the expertise that you can bring. And the final misconception is that large competitive firms won't consider you if you took time out of university due to illness. If you're unsure how to explain your extenuating circumstances, then please do seek further advice specific to your situation. However, all universities have examples where students who have taken out time due to illness or have had difficulties due to illnesses have managed to join either graduate schemes or a graduate job at large competitive firms. This is a really interesting piece of research which is carried out in the same article that I just referenced, and it shows that employers actually want very different things in a candidate than graduates feel they want. If you have a look on the left-hand side, graduates tend to think that the grade is most important in gaining a graduate level role. However, on the right-hand side, you can see that employers are much more keen to find out that somebody is passionate for their business and that they have great transferable skills, whether that's communication, problem solving, commercial awareness, resilience, or teamwork. And actually, the grade comes 7th on their list of priorities. Here are some specific examples to bust some of those misconceptions we spoke about on the last slide. There are some graduate schemes which actually very obviously specify that they're willing to take graduates with 2 2s. They don't want necessarily a 2-1 or a first. They're much more interested in what you can offer this particular company, what you can bring to them, your motivations, your attributes, and your skills. And so this particular example is from First Careers, the bus operators, who are looking for management graduates. Another myth to bust was whether you had to have a specific degree in a specific area to gain a particular job. There are a lot of graduate schemes and also some graduate jobs where just having a degree is their criteria. It might be that they do specify the grade that they want, but any degree discipline is relevant. Also, some companies specify that it can actually be you can have graduated within the last 3 years or the last 5 years. Some of them don't actually specify the number of years and just say graduated recently. So now that we've busted some myths, let's have a look at what your options are. We're going to work round this diagram, starting at the top on graduate schemes and working round clockwise to explore all these different alternatives. So the first one is graduate schemes. Graduate schemes tend to be very structured, and they're a fast-track training scheme in effect that usually lasts between 1 and 3 years, with most often ending up being about 2 years, where you get to rotate through a variety of different roles within the organisation. In terms of the organisation, it might be that it's a large organisation. Most often these are really large ones, but they can be across many different industries. And you can find out about roles here through particular company websites or kind of more grouped websites, things like Milk Round, Target Jobs, Prospects, the Times Top 100, Bright Network, or your own university's jobs portal might list them as well. There are some pros and cons to these. So the pros are that when you start in a graduate scheme, there might be a pool of other graduates who are starting at the same time as you. There will be an established training scheme in place, and that it might lead to a professional qualification. For example, if you joined an accountancy graduate scheme, then you would gain an accountancy qualification at the end. It also allows you to try out different roles because you're going to be rotating throughout different areas of the organisation. However, on the flip side, these are very competitive. There are huge numbers of applications for every vacancy, and they do make you jump through a good number of hurdles to be able to be selected. For example, some organisations I have heard have had up to 8 stages that you've had to go through to become successful. You might find that challenging, both the application process and the role itself, and you might find that the actual job itself has a lot of monotony in it. So think about how you're going to cope with that. And my challenging question for you is, how would you feel, in effect, being a small fish in a very large organisation? The next option that we're going to look at is graduate jobs. A graduate job is a permanent contract, and it's a role that requires a degree. Sometimes they want specific technical skills or a specific degree subject. However, most graduate jobs require just that you have a degree and that they will train you up. This can be from large organisations, large corporations, to small to medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. So it gives you lots of choice as to the sector and the particular job and the tasks that you'll be doing in there that you could be applying for. Many SMEs won't have graduate schemes because they're far too small, but they want to recruit graduates, and graduate jobs is the way to do this. You can find out about these roles through company websites. That might require a lot more looking if you're looking for SMEs, or group websites that advertise a number of roles, again, like Milk Round, Target Jobs, Prospects. But you might also find helpful recruitment agencies, the local press, LinkedIn, networking, and again, your own university's jobs portal. The pros are that there are lots of choice. You can get a graduate job in a wide variety of areas, and they're far less competitive than graduate schemes. However, whilst they may have a shorter recruitment process and you get straight into your role, there is a lot of choice, and that can be difficult. So it's thinking about what it is that you're looking for. They are still competitive, even though they're less competitive than graduate schemes, so you do need to tailor your applications really well. You may find that in a graduate job you don't have as much training given to you, and there might not be professional qualifications that you work towards like you would with a graduate scheme. And you might want to gain those, so it's worthwhile considering that. However, you might find that you're applying for these graduate jobs alongside other people that have got more experience. So a question that I want to leave you with thinking about graduate jobs is, how would you feel just working in one job area or section for that whole time that you gain experience in? Are you ready to make that decision? What about gaining some more experience first? Maybe if you're not sure what area you want to work in, or if you've got no particular experience in the sector that you want to work in. Or it might be that you want to go into a competitive field, something like marketing, and you really want to set yourself apart from the rest of the competition. It might be that gaining experience is helpful for you so that you don't end up with gaps on your CV because you haven't gained a graduate job yet. Experience could really help you there. There are different kinds of experience that you can get, and these go from graduate internships, work experience and shadowing, and volunteering. And we're going to cover a little bit more information about graduate internships. So a graduate internship is a fixed-term contract, but it's much, much shorter than we've talked about graduate schemes. These are short-term roles from somewhere usually about 1 week to a year. They don't guarantee a future role at the end of them. However, if you really impress an employer, they may wish to take you on longer. They may see your internship a little bit like an extended interview. You can find these with large organisations, and they tend to be a bit more structured in terms of their internship programme. Usually they have a fixed time in the year when these occur. Normally it's over summer. But smaller organisations, they offer them as well, and it can be on a bit more of an ad hoc experience opportunity, and it might just fit into kind of your timings really well. Again, you can look on company websites. Have a look for SME company websites too. There's the Graduate Talent Pool website, which can be really helpful, the STEP Graduate Internships website, and again, look around your own university jobs portal, and also finding out about roles through your own networking and making speculative applications. That's writing to an organisation who are not advertising to see if they would consider taking you on. The pros are that you're going to gain some more industry experience, and that can help you then gain a graduate level role. It will also help you to explore your career ideas before you really settle down, and you're not tied down if you decide that you don't like it. They're less competitive because less people are going for them. However, we like to say that it'd be great if all of them were paid, but you may find that you're not going to get paid that much. It might be that it just covers your living expenses or the national minimum wage. And not all internships will be advertised, so you do need to get out there and actually do a bit of searching around to find out where you might be able to get hold of them. A question I'm going to leave you with is, how many internships are you prepared to do to gain enough experience to then move on? It might be that just to do with the timing of when the internships are and the application process for the next intake of graduate jobs or graduate schemes. For further study, there's different options as well. You might want to stay at university. You may want to consider getting further qualifications before you go into the world of work. This could range from master's level qualifications to professional qualifications or even a PhD. It might be that you decide you want to convert the area from your undergraduate degree and you want to move into a new area. For example, the GDL to move into law. It might be that you're considering going into teaching, and so a PGCE might be something you consider. Or it might be that you're thinking about doing maybe a graduate or a postgraduate diploma in a new field. The best places to look for these are on university websites, and there's also Find a Master's and Find a PhD websites, but UCAS have now started advertising master's level qualifications as well. You don't tend to apply through UCAS unless it's something specific like the PGCE, but the information you can actually find out on there has been expanding year on year. If you want to do a professional qualification, then it might be that you have a look at professional bodies or specific colleges or associations that are linked with those qualifications to help you. You could theoretically do these anywhere. It might be that you go to another university. You might decide to enroll back in your current university. It might be that you can study from home, or it might be that you can study alongside a job. So, some of the pros. Carrying on doing extra study can be a good way either to broaden your knowledge or to specialise in particular areas. The qualifications, particularly with professional bodies, might help you to gain chartered status or professional recognition, which might boost your career. It might be that if you want to become an academic or go down an academic career path, that a PhD is something that is a requirement for you. Certainly in the UK, that is something that is highly regarded if you want to go into that area. What are the cons? Do your expectations live up to the reality? Is a good question to ask. Is doing a master's actually what you want to do? Is it just that you're putting off making a decision as to what kind of job you want to do? There is limited funding for postgraduate study. However, that seems to be increasing. Just to let you know, there are a good number of people who end up studying a PhD in this country who actually are self-funded. So if that's a position that you're going to find yourself in, you need to really seriously think about how you're going to be able to survive financially. And it might be thinking, is a professional qualification actually going to be more beneficial than carrying out a master's? What is it that your field that you'd like to go into really values? And so a question to leave you with, thinking about further study, is how will you recover the costs, whether that's your time and or your money? An alternative might be doing a gap year or travelling. particularly if you feel that you need to travel before you can commit to a job, and that you want to commit, but you need to kind of get the travelling bug out of your system first. This can be really great if you want to gain an international perspective. It can be really good to help you develop your skills further and do something that you've never been able to do before. The things to consider here are you avoiding making a decision as to what kind of role you're going to go into, what industry, and actually testing those out? But also how you might explain your gap year or your travelling to an employer. There are many really beneficial ways that you can do that, but it's making sure that the activities that you do and the program that you set for yourself is going to allow you for those opportunities to talk about. And it's thinking about what can you do to really enhance how you're going to be competitive against other candidates going for roles when you've been travelling or when you've had a gap year. So the question that I want to leave you with here is, how are you going to start applying for roles that you can do when you come back from your travelling or have a gap year? Because a lot of graduate schemes and some graduate roles, the application processes open between September and December. And so that might be as you start out on your travelling or as you start out on your gap year. If you want to go for a graduate scheme, you would most likely need to be back in the UK to attend interviews and or assessment centres. And they don't tend to reschedule those because they're large organisations that aren't able to do that. And so it's just worthwhile thinking, actually, if you do a gap year or travelling, is it going to hinder your chances of what you want to do next? And if so, can you adjust it slightly so that it doesn't cause so many problems? And finally, from our diagram, the final option is self-employment. Maybe you want to work for yourself. This is great if you've got lots of ideas or you're creative and want to work for yourself. It means that you might be able to be completely in control of your workload and you want to set your own hours. However, as you set out, that might not be the case. It might take a lot of time and a lot of your effort and dictate your time for quite a while until you get established. Things to consider are whether you have all the skills, the creativity and the knowledge that are required. It might be that you need to learn some more skills to help you set up your organisation. A lot of businesses these days need really good websites and social media marketing. If you don't have skills in that area, it's worthwhile considering how you're going to gain those now. Or maybe that you could partner up with somebody who has those skills and that can really help you get your business off the ground. Another consideration is how you're going to fund your business. Sometimes it might be that you can start up completely from zero, but a lot of organisations, a lot of business ideas require a lot of money to get them going. And the last question is, how would you work on your own? Are you somebody that actually thrives off of having other people around you, even if you're working on different projects? Because if you do, you might find it really difficult and feeling quite isolated to work on your own. So think about how you might manage that. So the challenge question I'm going to leave you here is, do you have the ambition and drive to bring your ideas to life? It might be that we've looked at all of these options and you're still unsure. You might not be sure which is the best option for you. So what can you do? If you're unsure, explore things that you've done in the past. Reflect on previous work experience, what you've done at university, talking to people, finding out, reading case studies, maybe carrying out some careers-based questionnaires. It might be, like I've said already, getting some more experience or testing things out. There are lots of options out there for you. You can go and speak to employers at talks, jobs fairs, maybe setting yourself up with some industry mentoring or going on some insight days. LinkedIn is fantastic for finding out what it's like actually working in different roles. Or think back to maybe your final year project or dissertation. Maybe the themes in that might spark off some ideas. Or it might be that thinking about the content in there or the people that maybe you collaborated with helps you out. Crumboltz, who put together the happenstance learning theory, said that every situation can be seen as presenting potential opportunities if individuals can recognise them and then take action to capitalise on them. If you're still unsure, then there's loads that you can do to explore further. On the Prospects website, they have the Job Match quiz. That'll only take you about 10 minutes, and you can explore lots of different options, maybe some you had not considered before. They've also got pages on what can I do with my degree, So you can find out about options that you can do directly with your degree, as well as those that are maybe a little bit further removed. And they've also put together, in conjunction with Hexu, the What Do Graduates Do guide, which has lots of information and uses destination data to help you find out where other graduates from your area have gone into. Likewise, you could ask your own university, or particularly your course leader, about destinations data from other candidates from your course in previous years and what they've gone on to do. In addition, you could have a look at professional bodies. It might be that you want to find out about some of the typical careers or the career paths that you might be able to go into with your degree area in a different context. If you're still unsure, LinkedIn might be really helpful for you. You can explore more about job options and actually what it's like to work in particular jobs through LinkedIn. And all you need to do is go to your university homepage on there, click on the Alumni tab, and you can find out what others have done, what it's like, how people got into a job you want. And if you want a little starter to get you going, it's always best if you want to connect with somebody that you put a message in there to explain why it is that you'd like to connect with them and what hopefully you'll be able to gain from that new link. It might be that you still feel you need a bit more in-depth support. Your university, if you're still there, will offer that. However, when you've graduated, different universities have a different level of service. Some universities offer the same level of support as when you were a student for several years afterwards. Sometimes it's a slightly different level. If you find that's the case, you can also access information through the National Careers Service. So, the final section, how to stay employable. The key things here are to make sure that you are willing to keep on learning. Gain experience, try out new things, and if possible, try to ensure there are going to be no gaps on your CV, even if it's just that you're volunteering for a while. Don't be afraid to try something new. Harvey said that employability isn't just about getting a job. The emphasis is much more on the ability and less on the employ. You don't know where your career will take you. You don't know how smooth your path will be. It might be that you'd love to have it, that smooth, light uphill journey on the top diagram there. But in reality, the twists and the turns, the ups and the downs that you might face may make it a little bit more like that second image. And whatever you face, the key thing is to ensure that you are employable, that you are willing to learn, that you're willing to gain experience and try new things. And that's what Hawkins said in his quote here. So, we've covered in our webinar advice about different options available to you after university, and also hopefully how to identify some of your next steps. Hopefully, as we've gone through those options, certain things have rung true with you. We've covered bursting misconceptions, what your options are, what graduates do, and how to stay employable. Thank you very much for listening. Please do go ahead and ask questions, and I look forward to answering some of these for you. Okay, so some of you have put some questions in to be answered, so I'll try and work through as many of those as I can do. The first one that's come in is from Agatha, who asks whether I know of any employers who offer graduate schemes in the life sciences sector. The main employer within the kind of life sciences sector that offers a scheme as such is the NHS in the UK, and they have their STP, their Scientist Training Programme. Within the Scientist Training Programme, there are a whole wealth of different roles that you can apply for. It's quite a competitive process, just like other graduate schemes. It has closed for this academic year. They tend to open in the beginning of January and end about the end of January. So you've got about a month to apply for those. All information, if you just type NHS STP into Google or another search engine, you'll be able to come with lots of information from that. They post it, kind of a lot of information all year round, and then just have extra sections open directly at the right time frame when the applications are available. They also then do a round of rigorous interviews after some psychometric testing as well. That's the main graduate scheme that's obvious, I guess, that I know about within life sciences. However, there are a number of graduate roles and good organisations that you can have a look at in terms of where to find other life sciences graduate roles, including websites like stemgraduates.co.uk, graduateland.com. Prospects will have some. Your own university jobs portal might advertise some as well. And that takes me on to a second question. So a second question is, what are the benefits of using your university jobs portal? And that question comes from Sana. So thank you very much, Sana. That's a really good question. A lot of the time, the roles that are advertised on your university jobs portal are advertised there because an employer is particularly looking to take on graduates from your university. It might be that, as with Nottingham Trent University, the employers have a good relationship directly with some of the members of the careers or employability department at your university, and so they really understand a bit more about what you've been learning on your course and what skills, whether it's technical, transferable, the knowledge, how you've had to apply that in your course, that you could be bringing into a role. So the benefits of using a jobs portal that's based at your university are that, first of all, the employer is favourable towards you being a student of that university, but also they're not necessarily posted nationally. You might find on your own university jobs portal that some of the roles that you have being advertised there are either more local, they are not advertised on other websites maybe where everybody in the whole of the UK can see them, or even abroad, and so maybe there's less competition for them as well. So thank you, Sana, for that question. We've got some specific questions as well. So the first one that I'm going to answer here is a little bit more about further study from Sophie. Sophie says, linked to your further study slide, could you explain a little bit more about what a postgraduate diploma is, and particularly in psychology? So after an undergraduate degree, it might be that you want to either convert the area that you have been studying, so you want to go from one degree area and one topic into a completely different area. For example, let's just say you'd studied English language and then you really wanted to move into psychology. That's one reason you might consider doing a postgraduate diploma. And I'll explain a little bit about the differences between a postgraduate diploma and a master's course in a minute. The other reason why you might consider a postgraduate diploma, even if you've done a psychology undergraduate degree, is, for example, if your degree didn't contain enough of the modules required by the BPS, the British Psychological Society, for you to become accredited. So it might be that you've done a course at university that's had an amount of psychology, but it hasn't been accredited, and it might be that you want to get that accreditation for specific career paths that you might want to go into down the line. So just having a look, you can have a look at a variety of different courses on, again, a variety of different websites. A postgraduate diploma, it tends to be shorter than a master's course, so it might be that it's 9 months, for example, full-time, as opposed to 12 months. There'll be slightly different information or different requirements from the course. You tend to cover the same kind of core modules and maybe some elective modules as well. However, the main difference is usually whether you do a master's dissertation or not, so whether you do a master's level research project or not, and that tends to be the difference between the two courses. Either way, most people do a postgraduate diploma for some kind of accreditation or conversion. Another question that I've got is from James, who asks, how will a gap year affect my chances of securing a graduate scheme in 2020? Will I be at a disadvantage to people graduating that year as well? Well, actually, James, if you are applying once you have already graduated, the information that you are giving in terms of your degree qualification and classification is concrete. You already have graduated, so that information is not going to change. And therefore, when you're applying to a graduate scheme, actually, that can be really beneficial because it tells the employer actually at the level you have been working. Everything else is pretty much, I guess, the same whether you are applying in doing a gap year or in the year that you are in your final year. So that doesn't tend to matter. It's more about making sure you are the best candidate for the role, that you are really tailoring your applications, that you are demonstrating you have all those essential criteria that they're looking for, and that you are the way they're articulating that. So the way that you're articulating it is as clear and as obvious to them as possible. And then throughout all the stages, so the only thing I'd say is if you are taking a gap year, take note of what I said during the webinar, in that if you are travelling, for example, a lot of graduate schemes require you to be based in the UK when they're having their assessment centres. They cannot move those, or if they have got a number of dates, you still have to be around in the UK for one of those dates. Before an assessment centre, you often have a video interview, and before that you may even have psychometric tests to do. So whilst you could do some of those anywhere in the world, it's more making sure you're giving yourself the time that you need to prepare for them. And a lot of, hopefully all universities around the UK will have some practice and some support for you to help you in preparing for those. A very simple to answer question from Abigail is, are the webinars recorded? I did check for you, and yes, they are. They will be available on demand shortly after the end of them. Moving on to a question. Oh, I've answered that question. Alexandra asked the same question. Question from Manira. I hope I've said your name correctly. Hi, I'm really struggling to get internships or jobs within graphic design. I graduated last year and I'm not sure what to do. There's a number of ways that you could tackle this. Certainly within the creative sector, the one thing I'd say to start off with is thinking about what you have created already. How are you showcasing the skills that you have? It might be that if you have a portfolio, think about how you are sharing that with others. Do you have a website? If not, maybe spend time now learning some skills and getting yourself a website that you're creating that's really suited to your your particular design take, so that you are evidencing as much of your creative talent as you can possibly do. Now, there seems to be, I guess, a variety of other advice on whether to try and give your services for free to demonstrate how good you are first, or to say, some people say never do that, always ensure that you're paid. It might be that if you're struggling to find internships or jobs, that you contact organisations that you feel might benefit from having, say, a graphic designer to do a bit of work for them, who could then recommend you or who could then promote your work more broadly. It might be, for example, I remember seeing a student a while ago who had decided to contact just their local news agent to be able to start doing some marketing for them. It's in a slightly different area from yourself, but a similar kind of take on it. So they actually just offered to create something for them, which then was advertised, and more people then found out about it. Alternatively, it might be about making speculative applications. There's loads of information on the Prospects website about that, so do go and have a good look at that, and all the best in seeking a role. It might also be, final thing, that you can contact your university. Some universities give support beyond graduation. I know that at Nottingham Trent University we offer that support face-to-face as well as online for 3 years after graduation, with online support then lasting beyond that as well. So please do see if you can get back in contact with them to see if you've got any careers advisors or careers consultants there that might be able to direct you a little bit more. And a question from Mushtaq. How do you break into industry such as law if you don't have any contacts or very little experience? I guess the first question is, it depends on where you're at in terms of I guess your career path, your studies. Have you finished? Are you looking to convert? Did you do your first degree in law or in a very different area? One thing you can do is to just find out about, say, conversion courses, go along to some law events, have a look online. You'll find out there's quite a lot that are happening. It might be that even if you don't have any contacts within law, it might just be finding out which solicitors particularly it might be are in your area, and contacting them, again speculatively, as I mentioned just a minute ago, to find out if you could just get a bit of shadowing there or some work experience. They're quite used to having people there, and a lot of the time law firms are quite happy to have people go and do some volunteering for them to gain experience, because it benefits them as well. And then that might help you to just kind of build your network, boost your experience, and that might help also. If you have done a law degree at university, it might be that your academic tutors have contacts themselves that you might be able to talk about, or talk to. It might be that your employability or careers team, again, have contacts, opportunities, insight days, internships that you can apply to as well. Okay, a question from Carl. I was wondering whether it's too late to begin applying for postgraduate master's courses starting this September. Not necessarily. A lot of the advice that's given tends to be try and apply as early as you can. However, most master's courses close, or I guess recruit, on a rolling basis. So if they are full, if they've managed to fill their spaces, they won't be taking on anybody else. However, there's usually not an official closing date or deadline. There are some exceptions to that, as I mentioned in the webinar, for example, things like teaching and so on. But the vast majority, it's worthwhile just contacting the universities that you're interested in and finding out if there are opportunities still open. If you have a look at findermasters.com, you'll see that there's a good number of adverts that are still live and active, and so there are roles that are available. So it's never too late. Some people apply a lot closer to the deadline, but I would say try and apply now if you can do, so that you've got that sorted. And again, have a look at a good number of universities, see what it is that the courses offer. If you need a professional qualification or you need your course accredited for a specific career route, make sure you go and enroll on a course that actually will give you that as well. Okay. Another question from another Sana. If you want to become a teacher, should you take part in the Teach First program? The Teach First program is one option to becoming a teacher. So there is a whole kind of wealth of what you could do if you want to go into teaching. Teach First is a very specific program that you can go into. Teach First tends to be for people that want to go into teaching first before going into maybe another career later on, or that want to kind of go up the management path or the management scale within teaching at a reasonable rate. It is quite intensive, and you might find it more intensive than some of the other teacher training opportunities. But it is really good for some people, and it really suits some people. So it's worthwhile exploring all your options. One thing I would say is if you want to become a teacher, get experience. That's really important. Get experience, get into schools, find out what it's like to make sure that if you go into it, it is something that you definitely want to do. Good question from Ruby here. How do you approach a job with a lack of experience? It completely depends on what kind of area you want to go into. There are some job roles that you can go into without having any direct experience, and you can just really evidence all the transferable skills that you've gained from your course, previous work experience, previous jobs, maybe you've been part of societies, especially if you've taken on kind of particular roles within the committee, sporting groups and so on. However, other jobs will require experience, and so in terms of that one, it's worthwhile thinking about how competitive is it, what are they really asking for, what are their requirements, do they require you to have experience in that specific area. Sometimes it's worthwhile saying that even if they don't require it, it could give you a competitive edge. And if they don't require it, it could be as little as trying to see if you can shadow somebody in that particular sector for an afternoon or attend a meeting. Or it could be a lot longer, kind of extended period of work experience. So it's worthwhile having a good bit of research, finding into exactly what you need for that. If you're not sure, LinkedIn can be really helpful. Find out people who are working in that job role and see, did they need experience to get into it? See if you can connect with them. See if you can ask them directly. That would be really helpful for you to be able to find out. Okay, I've got a question here from Judith about opportunities for international students. And she says, how do I find roles that I can apply for without challenges with visa sponsorship? There are kind of ways to be able to find companies who are more willing to sponsor Tier 2 visa. I'm assuming it's Tier 2 visa that you are talking about at the moment. Some universities buy into some of these programs. I know at Nottingham Trent University we've bought into one called Student Circus, where organisations who particularly are willing to take on students and sponsor them with a Tier 2 visa advertise on there. It's a growing community. It's not maybe as big as some of the other websites, but it is one platform. There is also the UKVI website. If you just type UKVI into a search engine, you'll find the information there. It'll take you through to the government web pages, which talk about different kinds of visas, talk about when you need them, and so on. It might be that actually, if there's an organisation who have registered, they're on the sponsorship list, and you can search through it. It's a long document, but it is a PDF, so you can search for organisations on it. You can find out whether they have at some point registered to be able to sponsor visas. However, that doesn't always mean that they will take you on with a Tier 2 visa straight as a graduate. It might only been for a high-level role that they've done that. But it's worthwhile arming yourself with the information on that website so that when you do approach employers, you are prepared and you have that information to be able to take to them to try and, I guess, combat any of those challenges. I think it can be quite difficult to have those applying without challenges, but certainly if you're armed, you can show them actually that it's not so much of a taxing process. Okay, there are a few extra questions here, so I'm just going to scan through and see if I can find any that are a bit different from some of the ones that we have already looked at. Really good question from Daisy here. How do you find a career or a job that you would enjoy or that would suit you? There is a number of ways that you can do that, Daisy. And it's a really good question. It's a fantastic question. It's a question that everybody should be asking. If you go to the Prospects website, they have a number of, they've got two different kind of quizzes that you can do. I like the job match quiz because it's only 10 minutes long and it doesn't just spurt out one answer at the end, but it gives you lots of kind of possibilities of different opportunities that you can have a look at and have a look through the job profiles, see if that sounds like you, if it sounds interesting and so on. You might want to have a look at some kind of further exploration techniques. It might be that you want to have a look at kind of your Myers-Briggs personality type, or it might be that you want to have a bit of a researcher into Eggershine's career anchors. Those things can be really helpful, whatever the kind of job is that you do, as long as it meets certain criteria. That can be really helpful. It's worthwhile as well if you're either based at university or if you are a recent graduate, getting in contact with your careers advisor or careers consultant, because they can really sit down with you and go through that in depth. Thank you very much for all the questions. I'm afraid I haven't had time to answer all of them because I have had more come in as I've started to speak. I'm afraid our time is coming to an end. So I want to say thank you very much for all the questions and thank you very much for attending this webinar.